For those who don't know, tell us for yourself, who you are, what you do.
It's interesting. I was just talking to my driver on the way over here that if you asked me what I did, it would probably depend on the year. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if I think historically, I probably changed what I do every 3 years, whether consciously or unconsciously. And that's probably just adapting to the market or what's around me. So what I do for a living currently is I'm partners in a creative agency. They're called Little Giant. Little Giant Creative. We are a non-traditional marketing company, for lack of a better term. We work with transnational corporations, brands, nonprofits, organizations, museums, universities. So our clients range from HeinekenUSA. I have worked with RedBull in the past, I don't currently, at Vitamin Water, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art, Drexel University, Wharton University. In the past I've worked with Scion, the car company, which was Toyota. I've worked on, promoting movies, I've promoted cars, like.
You got a bit of a hustler touch to you. Just kind of get in where you fit in, it seems like.
That's really funny. I could tell a whole tangential story about that, but yeah. You can call hustling. I tend to look at things with soft eyes, so I understand how people can look at the world and be like, well, this is my only option, but it's a very narrow perspective if you think historically, if you think of all the means there are to make money.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about that because, like I said, you did mention a non-traditional means, and really when you look at your life story, you've taken a non-traditional approach to, I'm not going to say everything because I don't know your full life story, but you've taken a non-traditional approach to a lot of the things that you do, especially in terms of business and brand building and those kind of things. So just kind of take us back a little bit to who you were as a kid, what you were like as a kid.
My mom was a very forward-thinking person. My mom was like the first sister to have a natural at Richard Allen. Do you know what I mean? Like, she used to tell a story about how she went home and my grandmother saw her hair natural and like slammed the door in her face. Yeah. Wow. So my mom was always like a very forward-thinking woman, and my grandmother was too. But
different eras.
different areas, and you put two forward-thinking women on any issue together, it's like, you know, go outside and play. So, you know, my mom instilled almost like a, I used to joke with her that she was problematic in the sense that if I came home and I had like, it never happened, but if I had blood on my shirt, you know, if I had blood on my hands, my mom would be like, "What'd they do?" And it would never be phrased to be like, what did you do? What did they do? You know what I mean? Like, my mom never saw me as guilty. You know, like,
was that a good thing for you, or did you get away with a lot because of that?
No, I mean, we definitely bumped heads to it. You know, like, there's, you know, and I was never an angel, but she instilled this like motherly, you know, perspective on me, and that like you couldn't say anything about her son, you know, or like people used to make fun of her, be like, "Why are you going to that French restaurant with your son?" And she's like, "Because I want him to learn how to eat when he goes out," you know what I mean? Or she just really put this energy that I was not, that I was unique or that I was special. And I didn't know that that was unusual until I got older and I would hear people talk about like their relationships with their parents and stuff like that. And I'd be like, yo, I'd be trying to tell my mom to chill. Like, I'm
While you were at Cheltenham High School, you maybe were along the lines of a bully of some sort?
I was just telling us from Scott Video that I'm still a bully. And I like to pick on people bigger than me.
So when you say pick on people, I mean, like, what were you like in high school? Were you really walking down the street, you know, walking down the hallways, just rolling up on people?
One of my oldest friends is like 6'4", and I remember in 9th grade science, he sat next to me, and we were probably like the only two black kids in that class in Cheltenham, and I just harassed him, and be like, "What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? If you beat me up, nobody's gonna speak to you." Yeah, like I would just pick on him and pick on him and pick on him. And he's like one of my best friends ever.
So is this how you start all of your friendships, with bullying?
If I like you, probably. You know, because it's funny. Like I have this relation. I do, like historically, most of the people I mentor, I probably started picking on.
When you're going to these events, there aren't many people who look like you. You know, how have you been able to achieve the success that you have, as some would say, in spite of, you know, these other things that, you know, the world might look at as working against you?
I don't really exactly know how to spit that, but I think I have a different process. I think that I don't see myself in any marginal position, you know, even though I don't come from wealth, or you know, I have a GED, essentially. I've never been in a boardroom, or I've never been around someone who has credentials, whether it be PhD or, you know, any number of titles, and felt intimidated, and to the extent that it's almost like you know how there's a deficiency people have, like they don't feel hot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes I get in positions where somebody will say, "Hey, you should be shook." I'm not, and I think given the same information, given the same chessboard, that I can compete with anyone. So that mindset, and also I'm addicted to a certain extent to information and reading, and I think I'm a good listener. So a lot of times, like, I could be talking to an Uber driver, or I could be sitting in a meeting, and I'll hear something, and I compare that to what I read on that day, and watching the market, and I'm like, oh, that's where I can make money in the margin. I can make money where somebody doesn't see something.
But that's almost a gift in itself. You know how they say some things can't be taught? Like, how do you identify this is something that is profitable versus this is something that, it's probably just a good idea, I'll maybe support it, or maybe I just don't even want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. How do you discern, how have you developed your spirit of discernment to be able to know, okay, this is what I need to move towards, or this is what's going to be good business wise? How do you go through that process?
Well, a couple things. One, to go back to what I was saying to you earlier about being humbled that anybody would even want to hear my story, is that I don't think that I nor anyone else is that exceptional. So to go back to like the consumption of information, or being fortunate enough to have certain experiences, or being fortunate enough to know certain people who can exchange information at a certain level. If I believe that if we were all given the same playing field, that we could all rise. That I might be wrong. I tend to be a harsh critic on people I work with because I have high expectations of people. So I don't necessarily believe in exceptionalism. I don't think that I am that exceptional. I think that I have certain traits that I put together with, like the 10,000 hours or life experience, or having going through a bunch of processes. So you might express it as a gift. I would probably receive it as, well, I've been producing events for 20 years. There are unconscious things that I experience when I walk in a room that are going to give me a certain feeling that where I know, all right, that should be over there and that should be over there. I don't have to think about it. So in the process is where the unspoken knowledge comes from.
Gotcha. So being that you're a Philly native, how has Philadelphia influenced your perspective? Not just on the world, but maybe business and culture as well.
Philadelphia. Culturally, I can't say enough about how much I appreciate and I love this city. And I think if there was something unique about me, it's that I probably have a love for the city that has been a detriment to my own professional career. And by that, if I look at my peers, and I look at like the trajectory, or if I look at opportunities that have been offered, or if I did the exact same thing that I do in Philadelphia, and what I would be able to build if I was headquartered in LA. Yeah. Damn it, like I live in Philly because I got an opportunity to get closer to my father because of my move. My mom moved back here from Atlanta, and she passed away in 2010, but I got to spend 10 years with her. My office has traditionally been like within walking distance of my grandmother's house. I have a lot of peers who are very successful, and they all moved to larger metropolitan areas. Something that I'm experiencing is, for the last 12 years, everyone's been like, Tayyib, why are you living in Philadelphia? Like, come on, man. Like, why are you living in Philly? Particularly when the Roots all exited, everybody was like, yo, it's time to go. And stubbornly, I have a sister who's handicapped, like she lives here. Like that's really important to me. So I've always been tied to Philadelphia for a number of reasons. Like I lived in Colorado for a bit. I was in the military for 4 years. I've lived in other places that I loved. For a long time, I used to do like 4 to 8 parties in Miami, like around 2003, at like Opium Garden and Mansion and all these places. And believe me, I was making loot. like there was a point where I was like, I should be out of here. Mm-hmm. But my family and my relationships kept keeping me. What's interesting about that perspective now is that New York Times saying Philly is one of the top 3 places to visit in the world. I don't necessarily believe that, but the PR spin is heavy, right? And from my perspective, Philly is the last stand, right? DC wasn't as large of a population and it was gentrified, right? New York is having a creative exodus, and people who are 25 to 52 are living with roommates, married. You know what I mean? Knowing they're not going to buy land within their living life. So every time I get into a car or have a new meeting, like I talk to somebody like, oh, I'm from New York, oh, I'm from Portland, I'm from West Virginia, I'm from Harrisburg, I'm from Lancaster. Yeah, like very rarely do I know anybody who went to like Sayre, West Philly, Gratz. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like those were traumatic experiences. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
traumatic.
I feel like I should get like 3 times over for my tax dollars. But I'm being tangential. But so all of my high net worth friends who moved to other metropolitan areas, like they don't have the mayor's cell phone number. They don't know their politician. Politicians aren't tweeting them, be like, vote for me. Like in Philadelphia, I have a certain social capital that I'm able to leverage, and I have a perspective as someone who's 3rd generation of Philadelphia, and it's not the same as somebody who's just moving here. And my office is in Center City. And so it's a different perspective, and there's not enough of us, and there's not enough spaces. You know what I mean? Like the Bynums own this place. Like they've owned restaurants in Philadelphia for 2 or 3 generations. I grew up going to those places. When I was a kid, I used to go to 9th and Pine to Zanzibar Blue. You couldn't tell me I was on a set of Mo Better Blues. Damn it.
Yeah.
And my date thought I knew I was Denzel Washington. like the original Zanzibar Blue? Like, like you could, please.
So wait, so speaking of spaces in Philadelphia, you are now a founding partner, I believe, with Pipeline Philly, which is a very upscale new co-working space in the city. And this is coming after 215 magazine, coming after Little Giant, and then coming after some of the other endeavors that you've had. So why was it important for you, as far as it pertains to Pipeline Philly, to partner on that kind of production? Partner on that kind of venture?
That's Googleable. That's not
But I still gotta ask, why did you want to personally, get involved with that?
Because I'm not a high net worth individual. Okay? Because I'm not
But in Philly right now, we have a lot, well, I won't say a lot, but there are co-working spaces that are popping up, and they're not necessarily high-end.
Okay,
So why the high-end co-working space route?
All right, so now you're gonna talk to a different Tayyib.
Okay, that's fine. Which one is this?
This is just like straight, the new Tayyib, the Tayyib who just learned that he was financially, or fiscally illiterate until 2 years ago.
Okay, all right. Hey.
So, money makes money, all right? So let's say you and I want to buy a house, right? And he wants to buy a house, and we're bidding on the same house. Well, just to make the numbers straight, the house is $100,000, right? You and I are taking out a loan for that house. He has cash, all right? We are going to take a 30, 35-year note for that house, right? We're going to pay for 12 to 15 years before we get to the equity of that house. We're just paying the bank, and we're paying all the people who are involved in us getting the house, right? He's got cash. The day he signs that note, he's building equity because somebody bought a house next door to his for $200,000. So in a week and a half, his house is $150,000, right? So if you were going to partner, are you going to partner with us, or are you going to partner with him?
I'm probably going to see what you're talking about. And so what happened with Templeman, real quick?
Real quick, the abridged story is, there was this math professor at Temple who I can't remember exactly how he said it, but there were very few people were getting through the class. Because I had worked in electronics in the Navy, and I had done a lot of math, and I went to a pretty good high school, I was getting by. There was a girl who was not getting by, and she was asking for help, and she said something to him to the effect of, I'm paying for this, like you have to give me service. And he said to her, your little financial aid doesn't cover my tenure. And I was just like,
Drop smile.
because I had already had working experience, because I wasn't a child, I wasn't coming just out of high school. I had already been I'd been to Cuba, I'd been to Panama. And I thought it was fun when I was a kid, so I was like, yo, you can't talk to her like that. And him and I got in the words, and he pulled out this is like 94, so he pulled out like the briefcase cell phone. He called security. And he was like, security, we need to get this guy out. And I was like, you know what? Screw this place. And I walked out, and that was my last day at Temple.
Wow. And you haven't been back since?
No, actually, I'm on the Temple Apps and Maps board at Temple University.
Okay.
I'm an advisor, and we help train about 120 kids in digital enterprise, coding, every summer. I volunteer at Temple. I probably speak there once or twice a year.
Okay.
And whenever they get to the point of talking about me as a dropout, they're like, oh wait, chill.
We don't need to talk about that. Right. I mean, but all of that aside, you have definitely made it a point to give back and support to others, whether it's through mentorships, serving on boards, all types of things. I won't get into that because I want people to, go ahead and Google you on their own. But just in closing, what has been one of the main things that has really guided you through all of these phases of your life? Like you said, every 3 years I may be working on something different. And I'm just coming from a purely personal place here. One thing for me as a single mother and, college graduate, entrepreneur, one of the things I've had to get adjusted to are the cycles, and realizing, okay, it doesn't always have to look like this. Let me, give myself the space and opportunity to explore this and naturally kind of just go with my gut. And so I'm just interested to see, or maybe even get some advice from you on how you've managed to grow through those different phases and cycles of your life. How do you make sure that no matter what, you're still moving forward in an authentic and organic way?
I think just be true to yourself. Do you know what I mean? Work with people who are better than you. Do you know what I mean? Be careful of toxic people. Don't let people drain your energy. Do you know what I mean? Always study. Knowledge is a life process. You don't go to school, learn a bunch of stuff, go out in the marketplace, and be able to make somebody money. And I really believe this, and I try to instill this in everyone that works with me, that you have to think of it like this. If you're working for someone, right, you're not paying taxes, it's not your brand, it's not your relationship, you ain't got to pay the water bill, you ain't got to worry about the light bill. So when you go to work, you have to think, all right, who is cutting the check to me? How am I making them money? If you're not thinking about that, you're expendable. If you don't have the mindset of thinking about how the person who is cutting you a check, how they're paying you, and how you're making them money, you're expendable. Now, if you are an earner, or if somebody sees you as yo, if Syreeta go, it's over. You have a job for life. You don't even have a job, you have a career. You have to position everything that you do, whether it's your personal brand, your image, how you work with people, do you know what I mean? Your personal reputation, how you end relationships. Do you know what I mean? You have to think about all these things because the person you least likely to expect is going to be ahead of you at some point. You might pass them, but the person you least likely expect may be the person who is the you know what I mean, that bridge to you being able to sustain yourself or keep going. So.
That's a damn good note to end on. I'm gonna just leave that right there. Did y'all catch that? I just wanted to make sure y'all caught that. All right, so let us know where we can follow you at. if there's a website you want to send this to, whatever the case may be. I know I follow you on Instagram and Twitter and stuff. But.
All right, so I'm not really interested in people. Like people follow. I mean, you can follow me. I'm very Socratic. I'm funny. I play crazy songs. Sometimes I curse people out. I can be interesting online. That's at 215 Tayyib, Tayyib. Things I would like you to check out, having nothing directly to do with me. I executive produced an album about a year and a half ago by Dice Raw from the Roots called The Last Jimmy, and it's now a play, and it's making rounds. It's going to be at the Prince Theater next. It's going to be at Shipley University. I think they have a couple dates in LA. It's about mass incarceration, and it's an adaptation of Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. So that's probably, a passion project of mine from like 2011, 2012. It's really important to me.
And give us the name again?
The Last Jimmy.
The Last Jimmy. Okay.
Yeah. And then I was begrudgingly pulled back into music through a friend of mine who's a singer-songwriter by the name of Kate Faust, and she's releasing a project called Euros. And she can be found at I am Kate Faust, or katefaust.com.
Is it F-O-U-S?
It's F-O-U-S-T.
Okay.
And honestly, like, she's just an amazing songwriter, and she's at the beginning of her career, but I've had the opportunity to work with like really talented people, and I think, given the equal playing field, she might be one of the most talented people I ever worked with.
Wow. Okay, so those are two we definitely need to keep an eye out for, especially if you're speaking as highly of them as you have.
Oh yeah, and then, pipelinephilly.com, check it out if you can afford it.
And if you can afford it, that's the key thing. But I have seen pictures of the space, and it's really, it looks really awesome in there, especially with you all overlooking City Hall. If you're an ambitious person, this is a space that will really feed your energy and really feed your vision. So I definitely support what you are doing. I can't afford it as of yet, but I'm working on it. Maybe, you got some time to mentor me and show me how to get some money or something. But in the meantime, we are concluding our Sincerely Chosen live interview. So please give Mr. Tayyib Smith a round of applause.